Here we go. Hello, everyone. Let's see. What light? I don't have a lighting crew to help me out. I will go with what works. I'll look to see who's here. We've got a couple attendees. I'm going to promote my inimitable co-host, Holly Bell, to the stage. Hello, Holly, and welcome. Good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Sam.
Are we sanitized? Hi. Can you hear? Is my audio okay, Holly?
Yes, it's good. Thank you.
Okay, good to know. I am mid-commute. Just to let everyone know, I'm visiting the school site tomorrow. I will be participating in one of the first adolescent physically distant meetups and field trips, and then seeing the school resource center in person tomorrow and Thursday. And just wanted to pause here north of Cloquet, Minnesota, and have a Q&A. So I'm at one of our state's many fine rest stops, and it's beautiful. So if you hear cars or other things behind me, that's the explanation. Holly, where are you?
I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay. Wonderful.
Very close to the school, though.
Okay, good. Well, I will be very close to the school also in approximately 3.25 hours. So,
Okie dokie.
in any case. Yeah, I know, right? But I've decided to not do this from a moving vehicle.
That's good. That's good.
That's good. But I do want hands recently.
That's really role model.
Right, and I got some talking points ready. Those of you who are here, please put questions into the Q&A if you have them, and we will answer them. And then Holly, do you have any questions? I don't have any questions emailed in.
I have a question that just occurred to me today.
Oh, yeah.
It's something about ACEs, or ACE, not ACEs.
Oh, yeah.
There's a group called ACE.
Companionship and empowerment. The 7th and 8th year school club. Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about that?
Yes, I can, and I will do so right after the talking point.
Oh, okay. That? Okay. Thank you.
After this message, this public service announcement. We don't have a sponsor yet. Holly and I don't have a sponsor yet for these evenings. So if you know someone, please share. I am sharing now our talking points for school models and our decisions this school year. And so just to remind folks, we do have a safe learning plan from the state of Minnesota. We do have a formula through which we measure viral activity. Specifically then, again, we're looking for really the relationship between increasing or decreasing viral activity. And then on the bottom part of the graph here is our preparedness and capacity to implement mitigation strategies for the virus. And so just to remind folks that this graph does have two levers. And so one axis is about viral activity, but lower viral activity doesn't just automatically mean we switch school model. We also have the mitigation and school preparedness to take into account. And so we do have a new picture this week, but I just want to identify this last week of data actually just includes through September 5th. And I just want to identify it is September 22nd. So it does take the state quite some time to gather the data, compile it, check it against and verify it, and then publish it. And so what I know about this data is that in some ways it is good news for us because it is the first in, I believe, the 7 weeks, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's the first in 8 weeks of taking data where all of the case counts per county have actually reduced. We do still have counties near and above 20. And specifically what that means is we still have viral activity to be concerned about. And I also know that in the weeks since September 5th, this is one of the parts of mitigation strategies that we as a society are struggling with right now. Reliable data is slow to come. And so I do know that over the last 3 weeks since September 4th that we've been going to school, you know, there's been more activity and more things to report statewide. And so what I can identify is that these numbers, if they go down for several more weeks, we will be then meeting with our volunteer COVID teams from over the summer that planned in the areas of safety and preparedness communication, student support, and pedagogy. And we'll be talking about how to best serve our students. But I have an inkling that these numbers will not continue to go down for the next 3 weeks of reporting. And I know that the lag here also means that none of these record any kind of data that is after the September holiday. And so for those of you listening at home, perhaps doing your dishes, perhaps going for a walk and listening to this podcast style, just keep in mind that the data right now is tentative, and we are watching it, but we're looking for the next few weeks of September data to come in after the Labor Day holiday. There's a picture now though that we are showing about case counts per county.
That's a beautiful chart.
It is a beautiful chart, and so what is a little bit hard to read here, though, because the labels, I haven't polished up the labels, though it does show through each county since July 5th through September 5th, what have cases looked like. And what we want to see is a steady downward and holding trend. We don't see that in any of the counties. So even with reducing numbers, you know, in Hennepin and Scott County, we do see some pattern of reduction. But again, we want to see sustained patterns of reduction and hold at or below 10 is what I've been saying as an informal measure for when we would possibly consider changing school model. I know that we are all living in a news environment that is, I guess I would call it turbulent at best. And specifically, what we do need is reliable testing, reliable timelines for test results to come in, reliable treatment for this disease that is still causing this global pandemic. And then also, we want to be really confident in how it affects our community. So just because we see these data numbers coming in for the August 23rd through September 5th dates, it does not mean that, you know, that you should get ready to just close Schoology and be done. We again have to see several weeks of consistent data before we even start to think about following weeks. So that's the summary. We will now keep showing this chart, and I'll polish up the labels. But basically, this does show a line that we want to see declining down to the right for each county. And this does include the 7 counties that include all the counties where our students come from. Plus, there's a couple other counties that our students come from that are not on this chart. So just to give you a heads up. So that's the big share that I had this week. Next week, I do believe we will have worked on an update to our school website. We have so many good resources on our website now at this point that we decided we have to move them probably from one page to a couple pages. So we're going to take all the data that has been on the return page, and we're going to put it into some more useful spaces for families to find information. And then one thing I want to talk about are student clubs. So Holly did ask about the ACE Youth Club, which is an after-school club being run for 7th and 8th year students this year. They are doing physically distanced social meetups right now at Como Park on Mondays and Thursdays after school. So from 2 to 5, and it's for 7th and 8th year students only. An email communication, though, did go out, I believe, to all 7th and 8th year families today. If you didn't receive it, then you'll be receiving it by tomorrow, with an open invitation. And that club really focuses on academic capacity through companionship with your peers, and then empowerment to get involved in your community. So they've got a really great team of facilitators, Tia Gordy, who is a Great River School alumnus and also a 7th and 8th year staff member, and then Stacy Ward, who has been working at Great River School now for 3 years and worked over the summer at summer camp and works in interventions and academic support for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And so they combine as a great team to facilitate this club, and if your 7th or 8th year student is interested, please see your email or ask us if you have questions. And on that note, we also have many other student-led clubs, and tomorrow will be our first ever virtual club fair. So in the afternoon tomorrow, there's a Schoology page that has all the student clubs listed on it, and each club has not only its own page with information, but a short video about what the club does and when it will meet. And we're looking for as many students as possibly can to get involved in student clubs by going through that. I know that there's an art club, there's a chess club, there's a math club, there's several robotics clubs, I believe, FRC and FTC to get involved with. And I'm just going to stop there because I could claim other clubs, but I know that there are many, many ways to get involved and express your interest. If you see a space where there should be a club, like you have an interest, but there's no club yet, there's still time to make student clubs happen. So if you go to the virtual club fair tomorrow and you don't see the club that you want, then I invite you, please email us, let us know. I and Charlie Ezekiel will support you in getting that communication machine up and running on your behalf so you can host a student club also. What do you think, Holly? Anything else
I
to
think
say
it's
about clubs?
great. I can't wait to see the clubs. Because
Yeah,
is
and
it
go ahead.
only students?
I think it would be awkward if you or I joined the club without a sense of irony. So I think chess club or the art club might welcome us as sometimes guests.
Yeah.
We shouldn't in as adults and dominate
No.
the space.
I was just wondering if there was a knitting club because I don't know how to knit.
I think we should have a knitting club. Okay, Holly, we could host it. We could have students join us.
Do you know how to knit?
Well, I knew once how to knit, and I am espoused to somebody. I'm married to somebody who has become a very fine knitter over the last 15 years. And I, before my parent status and my marital status,
Yeah.
I used to knit hats and scarves, but I don't know if I could take 2 sticks and yarn, and it would take me a minute at least. I mean, I used to do hats, but I don't have any clue how to do that now.
I can do one of those loom ones.
Oh, cool.
You know,
Yeah,
we
like
just-
a pothole.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I would say, Holly, we're off topic, but I've heard that people enjoy this banter, and so we'll keep it going. What you all are seeing is just what happens now virtually, but when school is in session again, what would happen in sort of the 8 to 8:15, 12:30 to 12:45,
Quick a minute.
2:30
Yep.
to, yeah, we sort of check in about
Knitting.
things. So I think we should have a knitting club. We'll look into that as winter comes, especially. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So I do know there are 2 attendees who have asked questions in the past, at least right now in the meeting. Please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A if you are attending currently. If you're not attending currently, this is your invitation to always send a question for one night like this if you can't attend at this time to office@greatriverschool.org, and I will answer it post haste right away. I know one question did come in this past week about, when will we know? What are the metrics we're using as a school to determine when to move, say, from distance learning to hybrid learning? And so one thing I will identify is that in observing other schools, in talking with all the other school directors that I'm in touch with at charter schools, but also principals and superintendents at other school districts, it has not been easy anywhere in the state. And so just even this coming Thursday, I will cite an article from a local paper in rural northern Minnesota, where the school board meeting was teachers reporting back to the school board that they're in an in-person model, and even serving the 1/8 of students who are doing at-home learning is really difficult to do 2 things at once. And so I know that that's difficult also for our teachers right now to be doing distance learning even well. And so one of the things that we will be keeping in mind, even with reducing case counts, is to keep in mind how we can really provide the best, most consistent educational experience to students. And so I'm keeping my eye on very closely for schools that are going back more aggressively in person. What happens when they have to quarantine for 2 weeks, or when a whole classroom does? How do they make that transition? Because I want to make sure that our staff and our students have the most really predictable and reliable experience. Because one thing we know about both human development, student development, and the relationships that result in good learning at Great River is the more predictable they are, the better they are for learning. And so the more we're wondering, well, are we even going to be here next week? Is someone going to get a fever? It makes it difficult to really focus on how to get the projects sort of done and taken care of. So all that really a preview to say, we're looking at the data, but I wouldn't expect to be going back to school anytime soon. We need to see consistent data. And then as I've said, we're using a six-week minimum timeline to look forward. So, 6 weeks ahead from now, have you done the math, Holly? 6 weeks? I believe that puts us in early November, and we say confidently that we will not be in person in early November. And so our school board and our staff and all the folks involved in looking at data right now are looking at data. But one thing we will be starting in October are more invitations for family involvement, both in some of the existing COVID response meeting groups, but also parent involvement with each other and how to really support each other both now and through cold and flu season, because it's going to be nerve-wracking, frankly. So.
6 weeks from now is November 3rd.
Oh, great. Thanks for verifying, Holly.
You bet.
You're the director of First Impressions. You're also a little bit this podcast data director.
Wow, look at my resume go.
I know, look at it go. Build that
And I
thing
get a
up.
promotion every week.
Well, you know, if you play your cards right, I guess so.
Yeah.
And then I think one other question, though, that I fielded by email this week, but wasn't intended for this forum, but I think will inform folks who are listening or watching, is my student. It's been 2 weeks now. You know, it's been 2 weeks since the first day of school, as of today. My student still feels a little like uneasy, isn't sure what their schedule is, what's going on. So I just will remind everybody, in a typical Great River school year without a pandemic, today actually would have been the first day of academic classes for students anyway. We would have had a whole boatload of key experiences, literally some in small boats called canoes, a whole boat of experiences. And it would be a time, at least for adolescent students, to just be getting into a routine. And so that's also what happened this week, is we just started some routines. And then for elementary students, there should be some routine really setting in. And so if something's not working, we want to hear from you right away, though, about that. I do see one question coming up live here. Will there be any in-person meetings with guides or classmates for lower elementary outside while distance learning is still going on? I do anticipate that there will be, and likely it's after these first routine weeks. So the first week of elementary school, all the guides really went out of their way to go meet every student at an off-site location. And last week was the first week of really implementing routines. And so with this week just being the second iteration of those routines, I would think that, especially with lower elementary, yeah, we'll be looking at planning some small group activities next week. And so, and I'll just say a little bit about one of the reasons I'm coming in to go on this field trip tomorrow with some 10th year students is to see how students are handling a prepared environment of coming to a meeting, so we can really establish how many students can come to those lower elementary meetups or upper elementary meetups. And one of the things that is really definitely challenging us on executing on those meetups is the real impact of accessibility. So some students just won't be able to come, either because of their personal conditions, medical conditions in their families, transportation and supervision. And so we are finding it difficult to find a resolution to some of those accessibility issues. Though I have been in touch with some parents who are interested in, you know, organizing even just neighborhood meetups to connect with some people who are part of the school community. And so the reason I'm not committing to dates is because I know that those real active conversations among guides about, you know, can we have a meetup if only half the class can actually make it to one of the meetups? Well, that starts to make a dynamic that makes it harder to do distance learning. However, I do know that there's a real felt and experienced need, especially for lower L students, to meet some other kids who go to school with them physically and in person, not just on the Zoom screen. And so regardless of the classroom dynamic of a classroom meetup, I do think that school-based meetups at remote locations for families to meet each other is something that I want to help facilitate, at least a plan for by October 1st. And that is sooner than you might think. So in the next week to 10 days, I look to hopefully collaborate and combine efforts with some lower L parents, especially, to make some of those things happen. So if you are watching this and you are interested in being involved, please let me know, and I'll make sure you're added to the engagement group parent list so that we can have caregivers start collaborating for that kind of meetup and support. So no official meetings yet. Distance learning is still going on, and man, it's a pandemic. Yeah. I hope that, well, I'll just pause there. I hope that we are all able to have some sense of humor Otherwise, as one good educator friend of mine says, you got to laugh sometimes or else you're going to cry. In any case, any other questions that you've seen this past week, Holly?
Well, I did get a call today from a person representing the Department of Health and the
Okay, yeah.
CDC. And he was asking, generic questions like, is your school distance learning, hybrid or in person, that kind of question. And so that was interesting. He said that they're going to compile some data for the state with the answers to those questions from all the schools that they could reach.
Yep. Yeah. I do know that, so I know that our state, I believe this week is implementing the first free saliva test in Duluth, Minnesota. And one of the key strategies of gathering data there is the state itself trying to gather an understanding of how prevalent is the virus among either symptomatic or non-symptomatic folks, but who aren't getting tested right now. And so that is, I know, one of the things that big health departments are looking for patterns about. So in terms of our little school community, I'll remind all families who are going to the Student Resource Center. So that means your student is coming 1 or more days a week, up to 5 days a week, to school campus to do distance learning. A couple things to keep in mind. One, we really are counting on you to enter your student health data every day into the student health form, not just on the days your student is coming in. And that is a form that we have linked in our SRC newsletter every week. And one reason we're doing that is so that we can see for the people on campus, what is the prevalence of experiences of symptoms. And if someone does, in fact, we have yet to have this happen, but if someone on campus does test positive for COVID-19, is there any pattern we can learn from to make everyone the safest possible? And then secondly, I do know that the State Department of Health and national agencies are trying to collect data on what on earth is going on in schools, because our state, I think, has been the most clear about it, but most states have left the decision up to the local district for what to do. And so we end up being, I believe there are tens of thousands of school districts in the country, and I know that there are hundreds and hundreds in Minnesota, including charter schools, if you include our school district as an individual. And so just getting clear answers is something that we don't have a centralized system to report to yet. That's why you're getting the phone call.
Well, it was a nice phone call.
That's good. We do in the state have a centralized Department of Education system to report to. And I guess I will also name, I believe that system goes live early next week. I will be on a call this Thursday, I believe, where I get an update on when that system goes live, but you can then go into the Department of Education when it does go live, and you can look at every school district, every independent school in the state, and see what model they're using, and if they've had to change their model, but also what their backup plans are. And so we have backup plans also, and I just don't, frankly, I don't want to give the impression, though, that we're going to be jumping from one plan to another on a day's notice, because it is such an immense amount of work for educators to adjust and change their plans. And so we are in distance learning, and then what we're looking to phase in next, to connect to that first question that was asked here live tonight, is we're looking to phase in ways that we can have equitable meetups to reinforce the success of distance learning. That could either be with folks in your classroom community, or it could be just folks in your neighborhood to start building some networks of support for each other, interpersonal support.
I was very proud to be a member of Great River School. What is that?
Oh, you were? Yeah, why is that?
Because one of the questions they asked was if we have a room for anyone who gets sick during the day for isolation until they can go home. I said, yes, of course we do. We have 2.
Yeah,
of course.
that is one thing I'm also proud, and I will go shortly into documents that are public. So you can go as a family or an educator or just a person to the Department of Health website and to the Minnesota Department of Education website. You can see the 2 main documents to give us guidance. The Department of Health is a 32-page document. It's got, I counted and listed them out myself this summer, over 140 recommendations, and it's got about 60 requirements. So over 200 things to do I am proud to say that we have implemented in each case, in every place, we've done all the requirements, but we've also implemented every recommendation that we're able to. Some of the recommendations are for in-person learning, for instance. Some of the recommendations are for models that we don't use right now, right? So it is though, as you might have guessed, not possible to do all of the recommendations and follow all the requirements. And so I'll just say that again, it's not possible to do all of the recommendations and follow all the requirements. And so it's one of the reasons that we're also in a distance learning model, so that we can really be the most consistent in how we implement those things. And then secondly, I suppose I'll say to all the families and students who are out there, I do believe that we are going, if you've ever run a marathon or a very long distance, or perhaps you've paddled a very long distance, one of the reasons we go on a key experience with seniors in high school and we paddle a long ways is because at a certain point, when you start at one campsite and you're going to another, we're not necessarily always enjoying the outdoors, because sometimes it's 38 degrees and raining, or sometimes it's 79 degrees and humid and buggy. But when you're going from one site to another, you can't stop in the middle and sort of just call it a day. There's kind of a reality of life in which sometimes you just have to keep going because that's what's required of you. And that's, I think, a good picture of adulthood. I do think that that's what this current pandemic is asking of us as a school community, is to understand that right now, even with good news in our data in September, we have 9 months of a school community to run in a pandemic here together. And we have to, if we're going to go far together, we have to go at the speed that we can all go, and not necessarily just as fast as the fastest of us can move. And so that goes for planning, it goes for health and preparedness, and so it's still unsure times, so it's tough. But it's also, in many ways, an opportunity to learn some more things about each other. As someone in my household recently said, burning daylight, they realized they were just sitting there, sort of looking out the window. They had to get up and do some work. They had to get some things done. And so they've taken it upon themselves to have that same kind of independence that we hope comes out in a Montessori classroom, to know what you have to do, know the spelling work you have to practice, know the mathematics you have to practice, know the research you have to do on the Supreme Court that you were just invited to do. And so all of those things are things that if you at home are struggling to do them again, we really want to hear from you. And so with no new questions, I'll sort of aim toward wrapping this up, Holly, and I'll say, okay. What we are really relying on, though, is hearing from the folks in the community about your experience so that we can be responsive. And so that as we provide an on-site learning center to do distance learning from, our goal at the Student Resource Center, and this is a quote from our wonderfully talented Managing Director, Wendy Fisher, we are providing at the Resource Center an opportunity for students to experience the most supportive distance learning environment we can imagine. And so we imagine all the ways that the ideal home learning environment might be set up for distance learning, and that's what we're aiming to try to set up at school on site. And so if you've got to be on site, please let us know. We are still making capacity for those who request it. And then secondly, it's really important, I suppose, to keep in mind that as we go through this experience together, that part of moving slow together through this pandemic so that we can all stay coherent as a community is that the discomfort of not knowing what's going to happen probably could be couched in the comfort of knowing that the adults that are in your student's life, and if you're a student, the adults in your life, will stay consistent, that we're doing our best to give those adults the most resources possible to plan ahead at a time when it's really hard to do that, and that as we start meeting in person, one thing that would be really helpful for us in planning is to hear from you as a family, if you're really hungry for that kind of experience, what you're looking for when you experience that. When you see other students at a park, but we have to stay, we've actually given the guidance of 9 feet apart at parks because we know people get excited and they move closer to each other. So if we want to stay 6, we better stay 9, right, to give that sort of spongy space. But it'll be really helpful to know from you as families what you're looking forward to if you want that. So the family surveys that we send out every Thursday, we really do read, we really do use to make adjustments in our program. And so one of the things that you can look for coming soon will say be an invitation for open technical support office hours from a community partner called Sourcewell Technologies. And actually some former Great River employees work there, and some people, some educators and teachers we're really close to outside of school work there. And we believe that they can provide some Schoology support for families, for instance, that we know you've been asking for this past week. So that's one example, though, of us really responding to the feedback we're getting. And that has happened on things as small as letting us know what's going on at the Resource Center or what's not working with your child's schedule. And so we really want to hear, no one's a complainer right now. Everyone's a contributor. Please, please, please let us know how we can do this best. And so just 10 seconds left for those of you who are live here. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand and you can talk, or throw it in the Q&A box. We'll do the silent countdown, Holly. Any updates to give and of pets or your life, Holly?
The pressure. My son is okay. My son and daughter-in-law live in California. 3 seconds.
Okay.
And right by the Bobcat fire, and it was 3 miles from their house, and they're okay. It's moving in the opposite direction.
Good. Oh, goodness. Oh, good. Well, that was 10 seconds for the questions. I didn't mean to rush you, so I slowed down. Hey, that's good. That's scary to be out there in those fires.
Well, and it's scary to be not knowing. Just like the pandemic. It's like,
Yes.
But every night he sends me a picture of the fire from their house. So you can see it coming up over the mountain and coming down the mountain toward. It's a good horror movie script.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, natural disaster sort of film thing.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll give a report that the colors north of Cloquet are changing quickly. I know warm weather is happening. I have heard reports that looking down the river from, say, the Marshall Lake Street Bridge, you can see colors along the Mississippi. But it's one of those signs, those phenological signs, phenology, that things are changing. I have also seen the color of deer is changing rapidly. So I don't know if you knew anybody, but in the winter, deer change color. I haven't seen any rabbits change color, but I know, say, in the Longfellow neighborhood of Minneapolis, it is one of the highest rabbit populations in my experience in the world. But we should be looking for those signs that the weather and times are changing outside, and as we keep that in mind, to know that there might be some opportunities for more fun school things to happen outside, but also we keep in mind that as cold and flu season approaches, we're not going to make any quick decisions about changing school models either. So just want to remind folks of that. I think that's all we have. That's all I have on my agenda today tonight. Anything
Thanks for
else, Holly?
doing what you do, Sam.
Oh, Holly, thank you for doing what you're doing. Those of you who attended live, thank you for being here. Those of you listening at home asynchronously, thank you. Just a question so we can spice this up a little bit. And then I believe it is next week that Tammy Lindberg on Thursday will be doing an overview of how to best support your lower adolescent student in grades 7, 8, and 9. And then I believe a week from tomorrow, Wednesday, Melanie Peterson-Nafziger, our program director for the 10th through 12th grade upper adolescent program, will talk about academics and the 1 through 7 holistic grading scale that's used for assessment this year. So those are two things not to be missed. And then I do believe that it is 2 weeks from today that our athletic director, Victor Vondersek, will be here to talk about both sports and athletics opportunities now in the winter and in the spring. There's a lot of Minnesota State High School League news happening that we'll be able to get updated on. So some themes over the next couple weeks. Next week will be orientation. Next Tuesday, I will talk a little bit about routines and ways to help reinforce learning at home. Because we expect you to be doing some stuff at home also during the day, like chores and other than just what's on Schoology. And then Melanie and Tammy. Yep. So if you've got an idea for a theme you'd like to see us spend some time on these Tuesdays, let us know. Okay. Bye, Holly.
Bye, Sam. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.